Welcome to Prep Station Economics. Today we'll be learning about demand. We'll be talking about the meaning of demand, the factors that influence demand. We'll also look at how to calculate demand in terms of quantity demanded. And we're also going to look at some graphs that explain demand. So the next question is, what do you demand? What do you like to buy? Okay, let's get straight into it. What is demand? The basic definition for demand says that it is the quantity of a good or service that consumers are willing and able to buy at a given price over a period of time. The keywords here are price, willingness, and ability. Because as a consumer, if you want to buy a product, you must be willing to buy it and you must be able to afford it. You must be able to buy it. That's what we call effective demand in economics. So it's very important for you to be able to afford something or be able to buy it, even if you're desiring it or you're willing to buy it. That's very important. And that brings us to the basic concept of demand, which is the law of demand, which states that when prices increase, demand reduce. When prices fall, demand increase. This simple law can be applied to everything around you, talking about even your school fees, talking about the stuff you buy at the retail shop, talking about the clothes you're wearing right now. When the price of those things increase, you probably buy less of it because you're a rational being. That's what we do in economics. But if the prices go down, you want to buy more of it. This is just what we all do. Okay, so let's talk about factors that influence demand. There are many factors that influence demand. We've said one already. Can you remember? Oh, I think you can. The answer is price. Price is the key factor that influences demand. When your price changes, your demand changes. Your willingness and ability to pay for that product changes. But that's not the only factor. We still have so many other factors that affect demand. Another one is price of related goods. Another one is income of the consumer. Another one is taste and preference, expectations of future rise in price, government policy. There are still so many other factors that we have not even considered in economics. Like, for example, conflict, war. Imagine there's a war. Who wants to go to school? Nobody's demanding for education anymore. Probably people are demanding for firearms. That's very important to us because there are different factors that might influence us apart from price. Now, let's look at Cold Stone ice cream. So what factor do you think will affect your demand for Cold Stone ice cream? For me, I will always say the price of the good because every time they do a promo, I'm willing to buy. But that's not all. What about another product like a Lamborghini? So tell me, what factors will affect your demand for a Lamborghini if you can afford it? Don't forget, you must be willing and you must be able to buy it. So what other factors can affect this? For me, I would say the income of the consumer because it's my income. No matter how much you love to buy a Lamborghini, if you cannot afford it, you simply can't buy it. You can only buy it actually in your dreams, but that's not economical. Very good. So apart from a Lamborghini, let's talk about an umbrella, for example. So what factor do you think would influence your purchase of an umbrella? It might be the price, yeah. It might be your income, yes. But that's not the major factor for me. I would probably say weather and climate. If it's raining, I want an umbrella. If it's not raining, maybe I don't want it. Actually, some people want it because sometimes it's sunny and sun is so hard. But that's not really my opinion. But these are factors that affect people differently. So I'm trying to tell you about my opinion. Very good. So let's talk about this. A phone. What factor would actually affect my choice of the phone I buy or buying a phone at all? Of course, everybody has a phone, but what factors influenced us buying that phone? Well, for me, I would say it's the price of other goods. Now, you might buy a Samsung phone simply because an iPhone might be more expensive. You might buy a Techno phone simply because the Samsung phone you wanted to buy is more expensive. Or even between the phones themselves, they've got brands, they've got models. So you want to buy a Samsung A13 or you want to buy S20, they have different prices. So the price of other goods sometimes affect which product you buy. Of course, you're willing to buy it and you're able to buy it, but the price of other products gives you a chance, opportunity cost for you to decide based on alternatives that you have. Very good. So let's look at another example, talking about shoes for females. Oh, females and their shoes. So what kind of factor could have influenced the kind of shoes that females would want to have? So I would say for me, because I'm not a female though, but I would say from the females I've known around me, they would probably look at taste and preference, because sometimes they go by the size of the heel, how many inches it is, or how beautiful it looks like. So taste and preference is one thing that we look at whenever we're buying a shoe or buying a footwear. But it's not only limited to shoes, but even to clothes, to everything you buy. Sometimes you just love it. Maybe the house you live in right now, your dad bought it because your dad just simply likes the environment or likes the structure of the house. Taste and your preference. Okay, so we still have like a gas cylinder for cooking. Now, some people would use electric cookers. Some people would use gas cylinders to cook. Some people use electric ovens and those things. So the point is, what factor can influence this? Based on Nigeria that we know, of course, to me, I would think is expectation of future rising price. When people think that the price would increase, like maybe next month, people buy more gas today. The gas price has been increasing for the past I don't want to say years, but some months though. And sometimes when people expect it to increase, they want to buy more of that product at the moment. If they feel the price will go down tomorrow, they might want to wait till tomorrow to buy it. When I say tomorrow, I'm not saying the next day, I'm saying soon. Okay, good. So, and that's not all. We also have government policy as well. Government policy sometimes influences the kind of product we buy, or even when we buy it, or how much of it we buy. Now that we understand this, let's look at the graphs we have in demand. We have demand schedule and we have demand curve. Now, a demand schedule is a table. Of course, you can see it's a table that shows the relationship between price and quantity demanded. Don't forget, from the beginning we said price and quantity are the major things when it comes to demand, because price influences demand, influences quantity of goods we buy. So let's look at this. If the price is 1, for example, maybe your quantity demand is about 800. Now, please, in economics, we might not use real values like the one you have, like your price of your phone is 50,000, or like the price of your house, which is like 1 billion or 10 million. But the issue there is we're just giving like assumptions, just for us to understand the basic concept of these realities that we live in. So now I have my price here on this schedule says the price is 1 and the quantity demanded is 800. And the price is also 3, the quantity demanded is 750. And the price is 5 and the quantity demanded is 500. Now if you notice something based on this graph, you can see that as the price was increasing, the quantity demanded, the units bought were actually reducing. That's normal. I told you from the start, the law of demand says as the price increases, what happens to the quantity demanded? It falls. Okay, but not in all cases. There are some products, there are some services that work differently. Sometimes we call them, not sometimes, we'll actually call them abnormal demand, or there are other names for them. But for now, let's stick with the normal demand, the ones we know. So if price increases, demand falls. If price reduces, demand increases. And that is also shown on a demand curve. On a demand curve, you've got a line that is sloping downwards, showing you that as price goes up, demand shrinks. As price comes down, demand expands. Okay, I think we understand this very basic concept. Now let's talk about calculating the demand curve, calculating the demand function itself. So we have a function like an equation for demand, which says where QD equals to 20 minus 2P. Now this says, assuming Mr. Jones' demand for fruit is represented as QD equals 20 minus 2P. I know you might be thinking, okay, are we going to have this in reality? Yeah, we have it kind of, but this is just for us to understand this. So QD equals to 20 minus 2P. So let us calculate for a demand curve and a demand schedule. So we're going to calculate this now. So let us solve for a demand function. Now, if I look at this, we have QD equals 20 minus 2P. Now that's a demand equation. All we just need to do is substitute the value into P. So let's assume that price is 1. So when P equals 1, we have QD equals 20 minus 2P. That simply means that we can say P is now 1. So 20 minus 2, this, and we have the value being 20 minus 2, and that's 18. Now we can also do that same thing for when P equals to 2, and that will be QD equals 20 minus 2 bracket 2, and we have 20 minus 2 times 2, which will give us 4, and 20 minus 4 will definitely give us 16. Now, if we keep doing this by when p equals to 3, when p equals to 4, we'll keep getting that value change at the same rate, so which means I can actually predict what the next value would be. So now we have a demand schedule at the bottom right here, and we have the equation done, but I'm just going to assume the price to be 1 here, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So the quantity demanded when the price was 1 is 18, and when the price was 2 is 16. I can actually tell the next one will be 14, next one will be 12, and this one, next one will be 10. So we have done the price and quantity demanded shown in a demand schedule. We can transfer this data into a demand curve. And of course, it will look like this, a line down drawing the axis for the price, like something like P, and this is Q. And of course, the demand curve would have a downward slope like this. Just call this D. And when price is 1, price is 2, price is 3, all these things are basic things we all need to know. So I'm just going to move on with this right now. Okay, so now that we've drawn a demand schedule and a demand curve, well, we want to talk about change in demand. Does demand change? Yes, demand changes. Demand actually changes in many ways, or let's say just 2 ways, because we have what we call a movement along demand curve, and we have what we call a shift in demand. Now, a movement along demand curve simply means that same line drawn, there are different points, and a shift simply means a complete movement from the first line. So I'm going to show that to you with a graph. So let's say I'm drawing a graph right now, and this is my regular demand curve drawn with the price axis and the quantity axis as well, just like this. Now, if we have an assumed demand curve to be D and another assumed demand curve to be also be D, just like this, they look identical. So just to show you what a shift in demand is and a movement in demand is. So looking at this, if there is a change in price, maybe from P1 to P2, right? This will be Q1 and this will be Q2. We have 2 demand curves. Now, let's identify the one that has shift in demand and the one that has movement along demand curve. If you look at the first one, there is a first point here where P2 is equal to Q2, and the second one, there's also a point here where P1 equals to Q1. So we have this. So let's say we call this point A and we call this point B. The price went up and quantity demanded decreased. What do we call this? We call this movement along demand curve. This is a movement along demand curve from point A all the way to point B. That's a movement along demand curve. So if you look at this also, the second diagram, we have this D. Now let's imagine that not just price, something else changes apart from price. What if another factor of demand changes apart from price? Because here we've been dealing with price and quantity. But if there's a shift, that means a different factor apart from price has changed. Example, the price can remain the same and you have more money. Maybe your dad has a house, maybe somewhere in Maitama, and he suddenly bought a second house, not because the price of houses have changed anywhere, but because he has more money, or because of his taste and preference has changed. He doesn't like to live in Maitama anymore, he wants to live in Wuse. Or for any reason at all, let's say that a government action demolished his current house in Maitama, he has to move to Wuse. So you can have a shift in demand. You can buy more houses, you can buy more phones, more books, simply because not the price has changed, but other factors have changed. Factors like your income, factors like price of other goods, factors like weather and climate, just other things like that. So let us look at this. Let's say the price remains the same here, P bar, and there is another demand curve like this. So the price remains the same, but quantity has changed. At the first part, we have quantity 1. Second point, we have quantity 2. So now we can see that at the same price, quantity demanded has changed. So simply because it might be weather, it might be season. Of course, you eat more chicken during December, I think so. But you might eat less in off seasons for maybe not festive periods. So I think that explains the concept of movement along demand curve and shift in demand. And let's take some questions from demand. Let's take some jam questions actually about demand. Let's talk about demand quickly. So let's look at the first one. The law of demand can be expressed as, can you spot the answer? I told you from the start of the video, it has to do with what? Price and quantity. That means quantity demanded is a function of price. And you can see the answer right there. Okay, let's go at the second question. It says, a demand which gives rise to the reverse of the law of demand is, oh, you remember I mentioned that in the video, talking about it's not every time the law of demand works. Sometimes it doesn't work. And I said it's what? Abnormal demand. Of course, it's not normal, so it's abnormal. Very good. So let's move on quickly. It talks about utility theory, talking about satisfaction. In the analysis of utility theory, the basis of demand is, what's the basis of demand? That's marginal utility, because the more satisfaction you derive from something, that determines the price you want to pay for it. If you're going to get little satisfaction from something, if you're going to get little satisfaction from something, you want to pay the exact price that is valued at that satisfaction. So the answer is marginal utility. So let's move on quickly. The effect of a decrease in supply where demand is constant is what? So when demand is constant, what would happen if there's a decrease in supply? Of course, that means that there will be an increase in price and there will be a decrease in quantity. Good. Which of the following will shift the demand curve for Bonvita to the right? You talk about a movement along demand curve and a shift in demand. We talked about that during the drawing of the graphs. So let's talk about this. A rise in the price of Bonvita, do you think that would happen? An increase in income of the consumer, maybe. A tax on cocoa producers, do you think that would be the answer? A fall in the price of substitute commodities. Well, the answer, of course, is an increase in income. Don't forget, I told you, price is the main factor that determines demand. But it's not the only factor. When price remains the same and other factors change, then there will be a shift in demand. Okay, good. So we're going to take a break from all these questions now. Then we'll see you soon. Thank you.